All right, today we're diving into the incredible story that's frozen in time all across the UK's landscape. We're going to see how these absolutely colossal sheets of ice acted like nature's own sculptors, carving out the very mountains and valleys we see today.
Have you ever looked at a huge, sweeping valley or a really sharp mountain peak and just wondered, how did that even get there? Well, it turns out there's this powerful story of ice and rock hidden in plain sight. It's a story that explains the very shape of the land we live on.
So, our journey is going to start way up high in the mountains. This is the very birthplace of glaciers, where the first marks of the Ice Age were literally carved into the rock.
The whole story starts with a feature called a corrie. You might also hear it called a cirque, or if you're in Wales, a quim. Just imagine a massive armchair-shaped hollow gouged high into a mountainside. You usually find them on the colder, north-facing slopes, which are perfectly sheltered for snow to just pile up year after year until eventually a glacier is born.
And the way this happens is just fascinating. It starts simply enough, with snow just piling up in that hollow. But over time, the immense weight squeezes all the air out, compressing the snow into solid glacial ice. Now, this ice isn't just sitting there. It starts to move in this slow rotational slide, kind of like a giant ice cream scoop. This movement grinds away at the bedrock. That's a process called abrasion, and it plucks out huge blocks of rock, digging the hollow deeper and deeper, leaving this raised lip of rock at the front.
And this isn't just some abstract concept, right? You can go see a classic example, the Red Tarn Quarry in the Lake District. When all the ice eventually melts, these perfectly carved bowls often fill up with water, creating these beautiful, isolated mountain lakes called tarns.
Okay, so what happens when you get multiple quarries forming on the same mountain? Well, this is where the landscape gets truly spectacular. When two quarries erode back to back, they carve out this razor-sharp, knife-edge ridge called an arête. But if you get three or more carving into the same peak from different sides, they create a stunning, pointed pyramidal peak, like a natural spire reaching for the sky.
A perfect example of this is Striding Edge on Helvellyn. It's one of the most famous arêtes in Britain. You can almost feel the ice just gnawing away at the rock from both sides, leaving behind this breathtakingly narrow walkway. It's a huge challenge and a huge attraction for hikers today.
Now, from these high peaks, the glaciers didn't just stay put. They started to flow downwards, pouring into existing river valleys and just completely reshaping them with unstoppable force. And the transformation here is just immense. Before the ice, you had these gentle, V-shaped valleys carved by winding rivers. But a glacier is a much blunter, more powerful tool. It doesn't wind around things. It bulldozes straight through them. It scours the valley, straightening it, deepening it, and turning it into this classic U shape with a wide, flat floor and incredibly steep sides.
So let's just picture that pre-glacial world for a moment. You've got a river meandering through the landscape, weaving its way around a series of hills that overlap, kind of like the teeth of a zipper. Geologists call these interlocking spurs.
But the glacier doesn't meander. It's a river of ice, a true bulldozer. It just plows straight through these spurs, chopping off their ends and leaving behind these steep, blunt cliffs we now call truncated spurs. It's just a powerful testament to the sheer force we're talking about here.
Now, that main valley glacier was a giant, but it was fed by smaller, tributary glaciers coming in from the side valleys. These smaller glaciers just didn't have the same immense power, so their valleys weren't carved out nearly as deep. So when all the ice finally melted away, these tributary valleys were left hanging high above the main valley floor, which is what creates those spectacular waterfalls we so often see in these landscapes.
Back down on the main valley floor, the glacier's power wasn't totally even. In spots where the bedrock was a bit softer, or maybe the ice was thicker, it would dig even deeper, gouging out a long basin. After the Ice Age, these over-deepened sections filled with water to become what we call ribbon lakes. These long, skimmy bodies of water just like Ullswater in the Lake District.
So up to now, we focused on what the ice took away. But what about everything it left behind? As these giants of ice melted, they just dropped all the rock and debris they'd been carrying, and that created a whole new set of landforms. The raw material for all of these features is something called till, or sometimes boulder clay. Basically, it's the glacier's leftovers. A messy, completely unsorted jumble of angular rocks, sand, clay, all mixed together. It's the geological fingerprint that a melted glacier leaves behind. Now, this till doesn't just lie flat. It often gets organized into ridges and mounds called moraines, and they're named based on where the glacier deposited its debris. So you have lateral moraines along the sides, a medial moraine where two glaciers merge, ground moraines spread across the bottom, and a terminal moraine right at the glacier's endpoint.
Moraines are essentially the chalk outline of a glacier. A terminal moraine, for instance, marks the absolute furthest point the ice ever reached. It's this massive ridge of debris that got pushed up at the glacier's snout. In some places, these even act as natural dams holding back lakes. By mapping all these moraines, geologists can literally trace the ghost of the ice age across the landscape.
Sometimes, as a glacier was retreating, it would actually mold the till beneath it into these smooth, elongated, teardrop-shaped hills called drumlins. They often show up in these huge groups called swarms, creating this really distinctive basket of eggs landscape. And they're fantastic clues for geologists, because the steep, blunt end always points back in the direction the ice flowed from.
Okay, finally, let's look at one of the most curious and dramatic clues the glaciers left behind. Think of them as the landscape's oldest souvenirs.
This brings us to one of my favorite features, glacial erratics. These are enormous boulders that are geologically alien to their surroundings. Just imagine a glacier picking up a massive rock, carrying it for hundreds of miles on its back, and then just unceremoniously dropping it in a field as it melts, leaving behind a geological puzzle for us to solve.
The name itself tells such a great story. It comes from the Latin word errare, which means to wander. So these are literally wandering rocks, silent travelers that were carried for miles and miles from their geological home, left behind as these permanent reminders of the ice's incredible journey. So, the next time you're looking at a photo from the Lake District or the Scottish Highlands, you'll see so much more than just a beautiful view. You'll be able to read the epic story of ice. You'll see the deep U-shaped valleys, the sharp arêtes, those wandering rocks, and you'll understand the immense forces that shaped the very world beneath our feet.